People who got caught having sex at work, what happened? I was caught by my boss's boss, going at it with my boss. He threw his binder down on the ground to get our attention. Then he left, and we broke apart, then just finished the shift. I was so sure we were both going to get fired. I was a nervous wreck the whole day. In the end, he decided to not tell anyone and not to fire us. He just asked me if it was consensual, which it was, and lectured me on how inappropriate that was. Obviously, I agree. He also said he wished us a happy relationship, lol. Scariest and most awkward day at work of my life. Never again. I see the supervisor sometimes, and I know it's obviously something we'll both never forget. Story 2. There was a girl who had sex with some employees for pay. When caught, they transferred her to another building and took some minor disciplinary action against all involved. Then she did it again at the new building, so they transferred her back. Couple years had passed, so no old clients in her area. Then she did it again. Third time was the final straw to get her fired. This woman was taking home a 2 days paycheck for 1 day worth of work. Story 3. I plant trees for a living and hire over 30 20-somethings and send them into remote areas for days at a time. Often I set up trail cameras to track progress and get cool time-lapse shots and also wildlife pics. On more than a few occasions I've seen photos of staff walking off together and one glorious blowjob shot perfectly framed. I delete the photos and don't make a big deal of it. If it doesn't impact their tree numbers, I just consider them on break. Most of the time they are paid per tree planted, so it's up to them how much time they want to plant versus bang. Story 4. At my old job in a sheet metal factory, we caught 2 elderly employees having sex in the back of a Suburban. We'd long suspected it because they went from being extremely close to kinda trying not to be seen talking that much. Also because it was a job that had unlimited OT, they'd both show up at the same time and leave at the same time even though we didn't have set hours. It was wild because both his son and her sons worked for the same company. His wife would show up and bring food for the whole staff in our department too, and you could see the mistress's guilt whenever his wife was there because she'd always leave. After we caught them, we kept our mouth shut about it, but they both starting being really nice to us all. The woman would bring us all lunch every day. Story 5. I used to work at a high-end restaurant for a few years, so I got a few stories. For instance, one time after closing up shop we were getting ready to go home when I heard a noise in one of the broom closets. Found 2 customers banging in it after we'd closed down. Another time, I walked into our walk-in freezer after we'd mostly closed to do a quick inventory only to find one of the waitresses getting banged plowed by one of the other chefs. I laughed and said, "Don't let me interrupt, I'm just counting inventory." Another time, one of our corporate chefs got fired for jerking off in the manager's office. That was pretty neat. But the best one by far has to be the time we were closing up shop and this waitress and cook kinda had a little thing going on and the whole kitchen staff knew about it. So one day we saw them walk into our outdoor cooler and shut the door behind them. Someone mentioned it to me and naturally I told everyone still there. We all waited outside the door and listened to see if we could hear sounds. We did. So when they finished, they walked out only to be greeted by the entire closing staff shouting finally. Oh, they were so embarrassed, it was great. Story 6. Worked at Wendy's when I was a teenager. Just me at the register, the manager, and another girl in her early 20s at the drive-thru. Another guy in his 20s was on the grill and an older woman at the sandwich station, who I chatted with often. It's almost closing time. The manager is in the office doing whatever it is they do. Woman at sandwiches starts doing dishes and the other 2 are outside taking a quick smoke break. So I start cleaning up the dining area and take the trash out to the dumpster. The dumpsters are enclosed around a fenced gate to keep pests and animals out. As I approached the dumpster, I heard someone whisper, "Shoo-shoo," followed by a quiet, "What?" I am now aware these 2 people are not actually smoking and probably doing something my 16-year-old eyes don't want to see, especially since it's my coworkers. So I stand there for a moment figuring out what to do, as I'm tired and ready to go home. Then without a second thought, I heave the trash bag over the gate and yell out, "Throw the trash in dumpster for me when y'all are done." I walk back inside to finish cleaning up. The 2 lovebirds walk in about 5 minutes later and do whatever they can to avoid eye contact with me. As I'm heading to my truck, I check the dumpsters to see if they threw the bag in the bin. To my surprise, they actually did. Story 7. I worked with a guy at my previous job who was a night security guard for the main facility. Very smart guy, but had tons of self-destructive behavior when he was doing well. He was caught on camera entering an office with a night janitor, and she confessed that they had been having sex at work. When confronted, he admitted to having sex with her, and they said that he would be terminated. He agreed, but first asked them to show him where it explicitly said in the company policy that having sex on company grounds was prohibited. He had already reviewed the company policy and knew he had a claim of potential wrongful termination, and they did as well. Soon after, we had an updated corporate policy release with some clarification on what was considered appropriate work behavior. The guy actually stayed with the company for years and went on to work in manufacturing, where he was terminated for more self-destructive behavior. Story 8. I worked on ships, and my supervisor once told me a story about a couple of my coworkers, let's call them Ivan and Natasha, that he walked in on during cabin inspection. On our ships, inspection happens once a month and everyone knows when it's scheduled. If you're not in your room at inspection time, the officer doing the inspection uses a master key to open the door and look in for the inspection. He told me he went to this one room where he did the obligatory 3x knocks, loudly announced himself, waited, and since nobody appeared to be home, he keyed in. There was Natasha, but naked on the bed receiving oral pleasure from Ivan. She was enjoying herself so much that she didn't hear the door knocks, and she had Ivan's head gripped tightly with her thighs so he didn't hear the door knocks, and both had forgotten about the scheduled inspection. Ivan is terribly embarrassed and runs into the bathroom. Natasha finds the whole thing hilarious and just starts laughing herself to death, still but naked, on the bed, and the officer has a good chuckle and backs politely out of the room, saying, "Okay, why don't we just say you passed inspection this time?" He said that Natasha had a great sense of humor about it, but Ivan couldn't make eye contact and would turn red for weeks afterward whenever this officer came anywhere near. Story 9. I was a whitewater raft guide 10 years ago. We would party at the area where we stacked our rafts at night at our boathouse. We slept in tents nearby. One thing led to another, and my girlfriend at the time and I got it on top of a stack of rafts under the stars, quite drunk. The boathouse manager lived in a small apartment with an upstairs window directly adjacent to this stack of rafts. We would be introduced to our tours by him each day with fun little anecdotes. Like, "This is James, best river guide west of the Mississippi." So the next day, after saying nothing to us, he is introducing us and goes, "Okay, now your guide is going to be Chelsea the Screamer," with a pointed look at us. She looked like she saw a ghost, then laughed it off. No further repercussions beyond the call-out and a bit of laughs. It was a laid-back environment, though. Story 10. Worked at a bank branch a long time ago, and one of the financial advisors was pregnant with twins and everyone was super happy for her. Apparently, she has been trying for several years with her husband, and it finally worked. Fast forward to her last day at work before her maternity leave, we decided to throw her a small goodbye party at the branch employees' room after closing hours. The husband was present as well. 15 minutes passed, and suddenly the husband decided it was time for a toast, and that apparently he made a lovely video for his wife to show her how grateful he was on a USB stick and insisted on showing us the video. So the manager brought him his laptop so we could watch it. The video was a hidden cam, I guess, in their bedroom of the advisor having sex with another guy with sound and everything. We were all so shocked the video played for a good minute until the manager closed his laptop and basically sent everyone home. The advisor was crying her life out. The husband had this evil smile on his face, took his USB stick out of the laptop and said, "See you in court," and left. Story 11. I was an engineer at a company. A couple were fired for having sex in his car in the parking lot. Our company was one of the biggest CCTV manufacturers in the world. I designed camera control systems. Our parking lot was also used to test product and had one of the highest camera per square foot ratio of any parking lot, anywhere. Our cameras had amazing zoom capabilities. This just never occurred to these two brainiacs. Management insisted that we delete all footage. Story 12. Sort of work, but more like university/work. We worked as lab assistant/TA kind role, and after we finished grading assignments in the classroom section of the lab, every Wednesday night her and I would have sex on one of the desks. There were 10 desks and 10 weeks left in the semester, so we thought we would take advantage of the privacy and give us an excuse to grade quizzes/tests/work sets as fast as possible and have sex on a different desk every week. The last week we were on the last desk. The professor shows up with food thanking us for being so much more dedicated than all her other assistants in all her years teaching. She see us with the chick sitting on the desk with her legs spread wide and me facing her thrusting standing up. Professor says, well, this explains a lot. Don't get pregnant. She left the food and left, locking the door on the way out. We finished, ate the food, and had sex again. Best professor ever? Not even a question.